So I plan to give you the worksheets for the paint ready to go for Thursday's class. But I wanted to kind of tell you what was the problem yesterday and what needed to be kind of resolved in it. So I'm going back to the paint worksheet and looking at the bedroom, Joan's bedroom. Now, that was one of your assignments. You probably got graded for it and everything fine, but let me kind of walk you through it a little bit of what we need to think about. So if you remember, the bedroom for the Jones had these dimensions on the floor plan. And in the lecture, I said you need to take off the wall thicknesses because these were going to center lines. Now the true wall thickness is 4.5 inches. You have a 3.5 inch stud wall, half inch on one side of drywall, half inch on the other side of drywall, and it's 4.5 inches. For simplification purposes, I said just take off 2. That's going to be good enough. Remember, these are still estimates, and there's always a little bit of slop in the number. You want to be as accurate as possible, but you don't have to go to like the 10th decimal place. So if we add this distance of the bedroom from this point to this point, it's 13.6 plus 2'6" minus the 2 inches of this wall and the 2 inches of this wall. And that's what we've got here. We've got 13.6 plus 2.6 is 16 foot, minus 2 inches is 15.8, and 15.8 in decimal is 15.67 in feet. Same thing for the other wall. This one did not go to the outside. Sometimes dimensions will go to the outside, and I said in class we'll take off about 6 inches for that one. And again, it's a 2x6 wall. It's got exterior, it's got interior, but in this case we don't have to worry about it because the dimension string stops on the inside, so we don't have to go through that wall. So we're good. Remember, for this paint and all these finishes so far, we've only been doing the interior surface. So this is 7'11" plus 2'8" equals 10 foot minus the 2 inches, because there is this wall to consider only. And then that comes out to 910, which means 9.83 feet. That's the decimal formula. So now we can put that into the worksheet we have. And the worksheet we have works fine if the ceilings are flat. Bedroom number 1 would be a standard height ceiling of 8 foot. So we have the 4 walls, and we've got the dimension here. I personally think instead of perimeter, we should say lineal feet. And consider it that way too, because it's going to be important later on. Basically, perimeter and linear feet is what we're doing right now anyways. We're trying to get how much wall surface and how high area to go through it. So we just put these in here, right? One wall is 10.42, the other one's 15.6, and again and again. And then the total perimeter is going to be 52.18 because we use the sum command. And so it should be colored in so we know that's a formula. And some places we even lock the formulas, but for this purpose this would be good, especially because we're still trying things out. The height of the room is 8 feet, so multiplying the height times the length gets us an area, and it's going to be 417.44. That's the rough area, but we've got in the room, we've got a door here, and a window here. We've got to take those things out of the calculations. So again, we have the deducts. So this is like the gross square footage. And then this is the calculations to take it to the net. What are the actual surface we're painting? So again, what they do in the calculation sheets is they take the width of the opening or the cabinet, multiply it by the number of openings of the cabinet, and then multiply that by the height. Frankly, this could have gone in the other direction. They could have had width of openings, height of openings, and then number of openings. Same notion, just the way that it was written, and it's fine. Same thing. So that's the door. 2.67 is a 2'8" door according to the schedule. So it's 2.67. One of them, that's the total width, is 2.67 times the height, and that gives me the square feet. The other one is a 6 foot wide bypass door in the closet. So we've got 6 foot wide. There's only one of them. So of course you multiply that. This formula should be the multiplication of the width times the number of them. Same thing here with them. Actually, once you get these formulas done, you can copy them here and copy them here because the relationship of these numbers to the formula is the same. Well, the height of this is 6.67. That's 6'8". And again, that's the calculations. Same thing here, 6'1", 6'8". Now this is the window. And in the lecture, when I gave it to you, I told you that, hey, the windows are this high, 3.14 wide and 4.74 high. That's part of the information I gave you in the last lecture. So again, there's only one of them, so it's the same number. And then the height of openings. And so the square feet is this times this, right? Width times length is the area of a specimen. So that's it. And so finally, this one down here is the total deductions. And that's going to add the total of this one, and of this one. This plus this plus this. Again, Excel, when you click inside a cell, it shows you the numbers. Now, if you have more rows or less rows than I do, then of course these numbers won't be exact, will they? It'll be whatever the square feet of A is, square feet of B, and square feet of C is, that needs to be added together. Once you click inside a cell with formulas, just press escape to get out of it. It's better to do that because if you start clicking away, you all of a sudden get new numbers in there. You don't want that, so just press escape. All right, so that would be fine. All right, so we've got the total wall, we've got the total deducts. So now we're going to go back to here and kind of put the things together. We need to know, well, what is the final square footage? All right, so we take the square feet that we have is the total square feet. So it's basically the total gross, right, minus the deducts. What's left over is what we have to cover with paint. The total gross minus the deducts. And that is nice too. In Excel, when you highlight the cells, when you highlight a formula, you'll get these colored, and you can find out what you're multiplying together, so you can visually see it. That looks good. I'm going to press escape. And then the number of coats of paint. In our lecture, we said that sometimes if you're repainting an existing wall, that instead of doing 2 full coats of paint, you might be able to get by with 30% less on the second coat, especially if it's the same color or very similar color to the original paint on the wall. So what you do is you multiply that by 1.7. Because you're going to need at least 1 full coat and a 30% less of a second coat. 30% less of 1 is 7. And then this coverage, so then you multiply this. So there we have it, right? We're going to need enough paint to cover 586 and some odd decimals square feet of surface, because we're doing 344 twice, basically, or 1 and 1.7 times. All right, so then how much does a gallon cover? So this is how much you have to cover with the coats of paint we need to cover. How much does 1 gallon cover? And so this formula would be the total square footage divided by the gallons, the coverage. Right? So if this is how much square feet you need, divide it by how much 1 gallon will do, and then it tells us roughly how many gallons we need. And then to round it up to a whole number, we use the roundup function. So let's go back. How do we do that? What's that about? If you click on the cell here that has that roundup, and you click on the FX button here, it basically shows you what you're trying to do. Now, roundup, maybe you've never used it. Maybe you don't know what it is. You can go to Google. So I'm going to go here to Google, go Google search. I'm going to type in roundup to a whole number in Excel. Right? We're using Excel. You can see right here, there's a lot of options here. And so here it is, use a roundup function. And then if you click on this one, they'll tell you more about it and show you how to do it and all that. You use round down to round down towards 0. So round up rounds up away from 0, round down rounds down towards 0. And round to a specific multiple is the M round. And so there's all different rounds going on here that you can play with. So fine, we want round up. We don't want to round down. So hit the FX. And so the first thing is, you need to tell it what number. So I want the cell, whatever's in this cell, to be rounded up. And then the number of digits. Basically saying, well, how many digits past the decimal point do you want to go? Well, I want a whole number, which means I want 0 digits. So, and here on the side kind of shows you a little tip. If I had the wrong information here, it would tell me something else. So just for example, what if I wanted it 1 step beyond? In other words, 1 decimal place. Notice how that got changed. If I want it 2 decimal places, it gives you an idea of what it is. How many decimal beyond it? So this rounds up to the next 100th at that point. But 0 is what we want. It's true. We click OK, and the formula should say 2 gallons of paint, which makes sense. That's exactly right. If it says something weird like 6 gallons of paint, they'll say, wait a second, we only need 1.4 here. What happened? So then we go down here and we added a step 6 and a step 7. Labor and materials. These are extra materials. We've got paint. What other things do we need to have included in this? Same thing here. So we have the paint. Someone's got to put it on the walls. So the cost of paint, we said, was $47.98 per gallon. We need 2 gallons, so that's what it is. That's the formula, and sure enough, that's how you multiply it, right? The 2 gallons times that. But then I had this in the lecture just for some things to add. You, of course, would have a more detailed list if you needed that. And so this just adds up, again, to whatever this miscellaneous is. So we've got miscellaneous items to add to our total. And then we talked about this cost per square foot, the labor. And again, that's something that would be given to you or you'd have in your database or whatever based off past experience, what people usually charge for this kind of work. It will depend if it's a sloping wall or not, if they have to get some scaffolding, if it's 3 stories tall, maybe it's the interior of an auditorium or something like that. So there might be some other things to come into play. But right now we're saying that the person said that $1.50 to paint this room per square foot. That's the standard that typically is used for labor, or one of the possible ways to calculate labor for a space. So if I double click in here, that's what they told, and this is the formula that we wanted to use. And there's some discussion in class about this formula because they said, why couldn't you just do it, just multiply by 2? And that might be the solution to the problem. But in this situation, we have 1.7 coats of paint. The reason we have that 1.7 for the coats is because you need to use less of it to get good coverage, because it's a similar color to the color on the wall. The wall surface is still the same. This person's not charging $1.50 per how much paint they're painting on. They're charging $1.50 for how much wall surface they have to cover. So no matter what we do, we're going to have to include the entire wall. Even if you can get by 1.5 coats of paint, whatever the number that is, we need to move it up. The same thing. It has to be rounded up to the next whole number. So that's what we did here. So the cost of labor is the labor cost, which is 1.5 times the square footage we're covering, which is 3.4472, multiplied by the roundup of this number. So when we do that, because we have to do basically put 2 coats, even though the second coat is only 30% less, it still be 2 coats of coverage. So the square footage multiplied by the number of coats is going to be how many square feet of area this person is going to be covering times this. And we talked about in class, can we just do a double of this one, just this times 2? In this case, it would work. But again, what if this changes? What if this is only 1 coat of paint? This will be the most useful formula for our use. And so the total of the job is the material cost, the miscellaneous material cost, and the cost of labor. We add them all together, and you get this dollar amount. Now, if you don't have that dollar amount, I would like you to review all your numbers here with this. So I'll go kind of slow here. So did you have these formulas saying these numbers? If the answer is no, then click inside and see what you're doing differently. So that's a standard paint. But then we got into the accent. And that's where I basically fell apart. Because what I was trying to figure out is the best way to handle the different sloping wall surfaces. I hate to say this, it's a common newbie mistake on my part. When I looked at the wall like this, I was calculating it, straight on. And okay, so that's fine, but the problem is we have more than that. We have this wall right here. And again, this is a very common newbie mistake. I think it came about because I was using the spreadsheets in the book and kind of trying to make it work with numbers and math, and totally forgot about how to handle this kind of stuff. If I was maybe more carefully laying it out, it may have been different. So let's go back to this then. So then basically, we need to have calculations for this and this wall. That's different from calculations for this one, because this wall has a variable height here and here. Depending on where I'm on the wall, the height changes. But this one's a constant height. All right, so we got to take that into account on these spaces when we have sloping walls. It wasn't the case for bedroom number one. Bedroom number one was very, straightforward, flat ceiling, constant height. But this one has variable heights. These are sloping walls. And so this one's constant and these are not. And so we have to take that into account. All right, so how are we going to do that? Our worksheet for Jones isn't accurate. We need to have something for not constant heights and the non-constant deducts. In the end, we should have a formula for the total square footage. Okay, so let's go here. If you can click on to the whatever tab you've got your accent, we're going to start working around this. Now in this one here, again, I gotta say, I don't think perimeter is the right word for this. So I'm going to change this to perimeter / lineal feet. We're really talking about lineal feet of wall. So let's go ahead and do that. And that way, it's perimeter if it's the whole room, but if it's not the whole room, if it's parts of the room, then it'll be lineal feet. Then this cell has been grouped together. You can see up here at the top when you click on it, it says merge and center. Let's take it off merge and center. So we have different classifications here. All right. And then actually, I'm going to merge and center this one here. So in this one, I'm going to say constant height will be constant height. All right, so what won't be a constant height? Well, going back to the model, in all honesty, none of these are constant height, are they? Let's go back. This wall here is going to be 8 feet. This wall here is going to be 8 feet. So this is not 8 feet. So we got to take into account that we've got different wall heights depending on where I am on this. We've got sloping walls, we've got unique wall heights, and then we've got the constant or the standard wall heights. So I'm going to go ahead too and make sure that all the border, outside border for that is done. Click on that and click on outside border here. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it over here. And I'm going to paste it over here. This one is going to be sloping. And this one's going to be unique. This will cover all the heights of that space. So constant height will be for the room that's all 8 foot tall. I might call this standard height. Just standard. That could be a 9-foot ceiling, 10-foot ceiling. What's the standard height of the whole building of that level? Okay, and hopefully that will be good enough to keep going forward with these assignments. But the sloping height and the unique height. Now these formulas are still the same. We just got to change the numbers. So for our Jones, we have no standard height wall in this particular example. All of our Jones are unique wall heights or sloping wall heights. So if we label this wall A and this one B and this one C, we can figure things out. And it's kind of good to just label all these out. On this one, we could add more walls. It says E if applicable. We can keep on going. For right now, we have all wall A, B, and C. Well, what are they going to be here? Let's clear this out as well. Let's clear these out as well. So wall A, B, and C, there are no standard heights. A and C, however, A and C are, we have a distance for them. All right, so A and C, we've got a distance for them. And they are sloping walls. So A, I'm going to call out as 14.67. And C is 14.42. And wall B is a unique height. It's not the standard height of the building, so it's 2.5 feet. Yeah, I think you start seeing what we're doing here. We're going to have different columns. We have a big spreadsheet we can use. We have different columns for the different wall heights we encounter. If we only had standard height, like the bedroom, then what we've got is good enough. But we're talking sloping and unique heights. All right. So let's go now to the next one. Find area square foot to be covered. Well, we multiply by the height. Well, in this height, there is no 8 foot anything, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to copy these cells, copy, and I'm going to paste it here. All right, so for sloping height, we calculated that the average sloping height was 9.83, basically 9 foot 10. I rounded that up a little bit because we're basically taking this sloping and taking half of it, moving it over to the other side. That's automatically. So it's 9.83. All right. So the sloping height, I'm going to multiply by 9.83. However, the middle wall is basically 11 foot 8. So that will be 11.67. And again, these formulas update, and that's what we want. So far, so good. So now we have to worry about deductions. And I'm going to select this. And I'm going to do copy, go here, paste, go here, paste. And I'm going to go here and do the rest for this as well. Copy, go here, paste, go here, paste. All right, so we've got the different pieces, and we got it here. But it's kind of hard to see some of this stuff and where we're at, and especially if I'm trying, going across is going to be it's just kind of tricky going across. So there's something in Excel that's really useful. It's called freeze panes. It's a very useful thing for you to have long spreadsheets going horizontally or vertically. So I'm going to click here on cell B3. I want these headings to stay. I want these words to stay, but I want these numbers to slide around as necessary. So if you click on this cell and go to View and click on Freeze Panes, we've got different options. And they show the little pictures to show what they do. And really, this is the one that I'm choosing. I want the top, anything above this cell, anything to the left of the cell to stay. So click on Freeze Panes. And now as I go across, you can see the advantage of that. Because now they line up. And then I can go back. And I can tell because look, A, and it goes right to K. So something's going on here. Which, by the way, there's something also weird. These cells are hidden. Right click, unhide. I don't know where these cells come from. I don't know what's supposed to be in these cells, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete them. Again, it's just all this weird stuff that came with this formula that I still have a D that's missing. There. Hopefully we now have A, B, C, D, E, F. These were blank cells. I think there may have been other pieces of her formula that she left here, but we don't need them. But so if we go across, and if we go down, you can see where I'm coming from, or what's working for us here, because we can now really get close to the different pieces. So in this situation, there really is nothing here. These numbers need to be deleted. There is no numbers here to look at. Nothing to look at. Moving right along. Okay. All right, so our standard height is going to be 0 in this particular case. Moving on to sloping height. This is true. Okay, that's fine. The square feet, the math is going to be what it is. That's fine. Do we have anything on these walls that are sloping? And the answer is yes. We've got this 3-foot door, and we've got this 6-foot door. So we've got, these are the deducts, the deduct A. We got a 3-foot cased opening. There's one of them. And I think it's supposed to be 6'8", so 6.67 tall. We've got a 6-foot door, and there's one of those, and they are also 6.67 tall. There's nothing else here. Then this last one is the deduct, basically, of the fireplace, which we said was 5 feet by 5 feet. We have a 5 foot by 5 foot. That's going to be tile or brick or whatever. It's going to be something other than the wall that gets painted. This is all happening on the sloping walls, so that looks good. And so this deduct is still the C, B, and A elements. Right? You add them together, that's all the deducts we have. For the unique height, let's move over a little bit here. For the unique height, well, there's nothing. There's nothing there. So there's nothing on that little wall portion. It's just a solid piece of wall. Nothing to. All right. So we've got the areas that we need now. We've got the area of the standard height, which in this case is 0. The area of the sloping height, which in this case it's 85.03 of the total, and then the unique height is 0 because there's nothing else. There's no openings there, but they're all there. They're all kind of accounted for. What's the total square feet needed for coat 1 of paint? Step 2 minus step 3. Let's go back a second. I think for this total deduction, we've got to work on that a little bit. We got the 3 deductions. So for the square feet of paint needed now, it's not going to be a simple B12 minus B33. So looking at this total square feet needed, we kind of need to combine all the deducts. We kind of need to combine all of the gross area. So I think we need to add a row here just to make it maybe easier on all this. So here I'm going to select this row here. I'm going to do insert. I'm going to go ahead and type in gross square footage of walls. So I don't need, I'm going to get rid of that coloring in there. We don't need the coloring in there. So this would be equals this plus this plus this, right? That's the gross square footage of wall. And that is going to be square feet. And we might as well, you know, put lines in it like everywhere else. Done. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make this one bold because this is really a major number. So these are all the partials. That's a major number. And honestly, I'm going to even give it one more shot. I'm going to give it just a little bit heavier coloring there, just to know that, hey, this is something that's a kind of a combined. Maybe that might be a better word for it. Combined square footage of walls. All right, that way we know that this is something different. So then the same thing down here. This thing here about deduction, I can just delete that. We don't need that. We really don't need that. Deduction A, B, and C. So down here under total deductions, I'm going to do insert. Again, the same thing. And because this is exactly the same relationship, right? This one's going to here, this one's talking to here, this one's talking to here. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'm going to select this, copy, and go down to this row, select this, paste. And double check. See, it copied the formula. Double check, and yeah, this plus this plus this. The difference is this combined square footage of deducts. At this point, we now have an accurate number because now I can go to here and say, what's my total square feet I need for one coat of paint? If I double click this, I can see I've got that cell's not quite right, that one. So I just do this. I just grab this by the corners and drag it down. See that what I just did? You can I can drag this anywhere I want on the spreadsheet. Just drag it down and go over here on this one and drag this one down as well. Having these visual clues is really helpful. And you can see that now I'm saying B13 minus B34. The combined square footage of the wall surface, the combined square footage of deducts, and we now have that as our number. If we do 1.7 coats of paint, we get this as the paint. If the square foot coverage per gallon is 400, this is how many gallons we need. We need 1 gallon of paint to purchase for that wall, if we can paint at 1.7 coats. So we said that the gallon of paint cost $87.99. I think that's from one of your exercises. I just picked a number from there. And that we needed brushes and a paint tray. And that was part of the lecture for the data you got from there. And the painter will be charging $2 per square foot. So there's $2 per square foot. So let's take a look at this formula. All right, so this makes sense. The multiplying the dollars a square foot, yep, B54, times the square foot we're covering times the roundup of the number of coats. Yeah, this is exactly what we need to say. This looks good. So this formula here, again, look how nice that is with the way it kind of holds the heading here as we go up or down and as we go across. It really becomes very, very useful, I think. And then these kind of also give us a really close look. Wait a minute, these are special combined square footage information. And we have all this here. And so, again, if we need to add more walls, I would click in here and do insert row and so forth, and I'd add more walls. Instead of wall E, I'm going to call this one. So that's kind of the last wall. So you can keep adding walls if you need to. Thank you for going through this. I will send this to you showing the Jones sloping accent wall with the correct information there. You need to get that into your worksheet. Unless you want to keep this separate, you might need to get into your worksheet. Select this corner right here, this little corner right here. Click on it, it copies the whole worksheet. You can right-click, copy, then go to your worksheet you have in class, select this corner here, right-click, paste. You want this paste, and it should come in just fine. All the formulas would come in as formulas, and it should be okay. Then the only thing you need to do to freeze pane is to click on this cell here, B3, and click on this freeze panes. Go to View, Freeze Panes. And then this should work like this when you go across, or you put it down here, go sideways, it should work just fine. If you ever want to get it off, just click and do unfreeze panes, right? I mean, if you don't like it, you don't have to use it, of course, but it really becomes very handy, especially when we start working on wall coverings and so forth on Thursday's class. Thank you for your time.